Well, hello, John and Eric. How you doing? And welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having us. Great to be here with you, Paul.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here with you today.
Yeah, so for the audience, Ted, who was on a previous episode, introduced me to John and Eric, and they have a pretty interesting story. So I'm very excited to dig in and learn about their business and their background. So let's start by getting to know both of you a little bit better and the businesses that you both had before you joined to make KMM Group. So, Eric, why don't you start first?
Sure. So I'm a second generation owner of a company called KVI that was founded by my father back in 1977. He was actually an immigrant from Europe and had learned the trade as a tool and die maker from quite a young age, and immigrated to America when he was about 19 years old. And after working for several different companies for about 20 years or so, he decided to start his own together with a partner. So as I've seen with a lot of manufacturing companies that started many years ago, there wasn't a lot of thought put into, I think, the branding or the marketing at the time. So Carl and Vince started the company, and it was KV Incorporated. But I started off young with my dad when he first started. I was probably in elementary school at the time, and I did a lot of the grunt work up front in starting any kind of business. My father took care of the technical things, and my mom was in the office, and my brother and I helped wherever we could. A lot of times at that age, it was cleaning and sorting screws, buckets of screws from auctions. But anyway, Carl was pretty good to build a brand pretty quickly around close tolerance, high precision work, specifically where there was a lot of design and engineering to build special tools, dies, custom fixtures that went into automation to produce electronic shielding, feminine hygiene products, cutting papers, plastics, laminates that might, go into the body for a specific procedure or something where no hairs or fuzz could exist on that. So really builds up a brand there, and then, led into optoelectronics. And then I came into the business in 1994. And, my father, he was a good listener. He was good at his trade, and definitely a perfectionist, at times. So he definitely taught me a lot. And then in 2000, he got out of the business completely. I was fortunate enough to hire a really good general manager at the time. His name was Ray, that helped me a lot. And we built the business up together. And been very fortunate to put together a great team over the years. And in 2019, John and I started talking about more seriously. We had joked around about it for a few years about merging and how great it would be, and some of the consolidation we had seen in the industry. And we decided to make the move and put it together. We can get into more of that later, but just a little bit about the brand. KVI was just always known as an ultra precise manufacturing company, and really being able to succeed where other vendors had struggled for our customer base. And high engineering content, a lot of design, DFM, not product design, but manufacturing.
Process,
process design work, and being able to understand intricate and complex assemblies with many components where there was almost little to no clearance, where you're down in the micron range.
Mm-hmm. Wow, super complex. That's interesting. Great. And John, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'll give you the brief history here. So I'm second generation family business owner of M&S Centerless Grinding. Again, my dad started in the late 50s, and we focused. M&S was a focus primarily on high precision centerless and cylindrical grinding services. We didn't really make anything. We provided the service. Southeastern Pennsylvania. So basically, for the first 40 years of existence of the company, or 30 years anyway, the company lived on the regional, the region here in Southeastern Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area. Dad started in 57. I joined in 87 when I graduated college, and basically told him, Dad, I'll give you a year. I'm going to take my MCATs and go to medical school, but I'll give you a year to put me through school. That year has turned into, this is now 36 years. Manufacturing bug bit me. And during that year, I discovered I really like making things. I kind of changed my course, opted out of taking my MCATs, and went headlong into manufacturing. It should be, it's known that like my dad started in 57. I was employee number 3 in 1987. So
Oh, wow.
my dad was really good at doing the work, but not so good at delegating it.
Okay.
And all the growth in the company then came after that point. I found I had the gene that my dad did. I just kind of could sit at the piano and play, so to speak. He put me in front of a machine. I just kind of knew what to do with it. And, very much like him, grew the company for the next 15 years or so. And then kind of learned how to run a business, instead of just owning a job. I learned how to run a business a little bit better. And then things started to truly evolve. I like to think about 10 years ago, we were the oldest startup in America, kind of thing. We just kind of were in perpetual startup mode. And then finally we started to organize things and really grow the business in a sustainable way. And this is not that long after Eric and I started having our discussions. And like he said, we'll get into that a little bit later. It's a really good part of the story. But yeah, I had no intention of doing this for my life, and here it's become a total passion. I love manufacturing. I love the industry. Anything we can do to forward the industry itself or get people to think differently about it, we're all about it.
Kudos to that. Yeah, fantastic. Wow, great backgrounds. So tell us a little bit about what KMM looks like today.
Well, so I'll start off with that. So right now, we have 3 separate business units that operate under KMM. KMM Group is the umbrella company, holding company, under which all 3 of the original business units operate.
Okay.
However, during the course of this year, whether it's June or July, we will be moving into a single 100,000 square foot facility. And at that point, the sub-brands will cease to exist. KMM will be all that's left. And we'll be all, not just consolidated or merged in name, and legally we will be merged physically at that point. What's really interesting, I think, about this company is that each of the business units kind of grew in its own way. And so M&S was really focused on this high precision grinding area and really developed some high level expertise where in our world, we have an international base of customers because we can, like what Eric said, we can solve problems in grinding that many others can't. So we started pulling work from California, from West Coast, then from Europe and Asia, and so it kind of became really interesting as the internet became more and more prevalent in business, where things were coming from. We were kind of amazed at first. So you have this real deep, kind of inch wide, mile deep experience in grinding that then spun off guide wire grinding, which is even more of a niche specialty. And then, when Eric and I started looking at this and putting things together, we felt like the offering to our client base would be super strong. Both companies are focused on this super high end, very high precision work, but all of the operations that we have were complementary. So where KBI brought all the machining, wire EDM, milling, Swiss, turning, tool making, design, engineering, the grinding side brought all the finishing aspects, to it. By combining these things, you had a company that had an awful lot of capability under one theoretical roof or one virtual roof at first, and one physical roof soon. It was a very compelling argument. The more we looked at the companies as individuals, the more we realized it made sense to bring this all together.
So sort of the 1 and 1 plus 1 equals 3 kind of equation where. Are you trying to
4 or something? It's like we didn't. I like to say we didn't realize we each had a half a company until we started really looking at this.
Right.
It was pretty crazy. We had almost zero overlap. There was one person that was kind of a redundancy across all of the companies. So it
Wow.
it was really, it was just kind of meant to be. And even like when Eric and I look at each other, it's really a marriage, that we have. Our dads
Sure.
knew each other and worked together. The companies are only a few miles apart. So my dad, M&S Grinding, was a sub of KBI. We did some precision analysts and cylindrical grinding for them. So Eric and I have known each other for a couple of decades and been in the same business development groups. But when we looked at each other, also, we realized that we could leverage, though we have very similar backgrounds and very similar ways of looking at the world, how we show up is a little different. And Eric gets in the weeds and is a very detail-oriented how-to person. And I'm kind of like, I step back, take a look at the big picture, and I'm more why. And it's an extremely strong combination to have both.
Right.
And I think the companies have our personalities, and bringing this all together and creating the why and the how together has been transformational for our businesses and for even us as individuals.
Fantastic. Wow. And so did you, it sounded like you served similar clients, but the ability to sort of cross-sell to your own existing client base, was that a big factor in the equation, and capture more of the, I guess, more being a truly one-stop shop where they could get all these different services? Is that out that way?
Yeah, I think we definitely, we kind of saw the writing on the wall just looking at other markets, right? All these mergers and acquisitions, companies just getting bigger and bigger. And, we started to realize that, we felt over a 10-year period, it was going to get tougher and tougher to be a smaller player in this world. And what we saw with a lot of the M&A was, as being, job shops way back and still having some of that customer base, that a lot of insourcing started to happen. And then we also recognized with the larger customers that they looked at us as being smaller companies and as a risk in their supply chain. So, we just recognized that, mass is better and mitigates some of that risk, and allowed us to expand the work we were doing for many of those customers already, and get deeper in, make complete products or complete assemblies. That was definitely a driver. But just to speak to the people side of the merger, John and I are both very engrossed with our team and our people, and obviously have a lot of respect for all the people that worked at the company. Some of them are retired now, obviously, with companies our age. You
Sure.
have periods of retirement. But, I think our fathers really set us up for success in a lot of ways, in, know-how and other things, but also with the quality of people and how to coach them in this industry. But John spoke to the part of each having us having a half a company and bringing it together. But the other really great part was just the culture. Both of us aspired and worked in a similar way in building our cultures from a fellow we had learned through a speaker in our Vistage program, his name, David Friedman, over in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, at High Performing Cultures. And we both really took to that. We struggled in similar ways with having alignment in our companies. So when we brought the companies together, as John talked about, a lot of the culture at M&S and Marin was built around the why, and the KBI side, the how, but bringing it together made it that much easier. And another thing we did before the merger, we had, obviously, you start to sense, right, people are hearing some chirping, voices in the background of things that may be forthcoming. And of course, without facts, right, there's more easily fear. And so we made a decision in October of 19 that we were going to pull both divisions together and tell them what we were doing and why. And, I was actually concerned about that, at the time. And
you mean how people would react?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
would they lose? Would their jobs be safe? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I was concerned that they may look at it in a negative way, knowing about without truly understanding. Because
Sure.
again, in the law world, mergers happen and then they cut people, right? They want to cut costs,
Yeah.
and this was about bringing two great organizations together and really expanding and
Hmm.
providing more opportunity for our people. And that meeting ended up going great, and it ended up creating a lot of engagement by all the
Hmm.
people. We just explained where we were coming from, what we saw in the market, in the long run, and I was really happy with the outcome, and that just really was one of those steps that solidifies the partnership early on, where you respect each other's opinion, but you also gain trust.
Yeah. And John, did you have a similar meeting with your team? And
Yeah, so we kind of did it together there, and so Eric had a little reticence around that, and I had always been very open with our team about, hey, look, the future holds probably some investment, the future holds something like this, and I'm going to communicate with you. And when we were talking about it, I said, Eric, I have to tell my folks. I've been talking to them about this for years, and I said, if I tell my folks, at the grinding side, it's going to get out. We have to tell everybody. But I would like to, one thing, Paul, I'd like to say there's a really, really important point here that's kind of just under the surface. And you had mentioned, was the cross-selling a driver and whatnot. And I look at that cross-selling and the combination of capability as a happy benefit of what we did here. However, Eric was touching on this, is that we looked at the market um, and came to understand, because we're both very involved in the manufacturing community. We're both past presidents of NTMA, of the local NTMA chapter. We are involved in boards of all kinds of different things, and we saw, you can see the handwriting on the wall, that the smaller shop, what we were, and what we're transitioning from, is getting harder and harder to. It's a more difficult route to go into the future unless you have another generation, another Schegder or another Wilhelm coming in to take that over and take it to the next place. And neither of us have that. We don't have our kids into the business, and rather than look at, okay, let's go to M&A and look at PE and have private equity come in, make an investment. We looked at it and decided to do this ourselves, to get ourselves the critical mass in order to create an organization that's sustainable for the future. Because, look, let's face it, we're mid-late 50s. We're going to be here, I don't know, another 10, 15 years.
Sure.
Maybe it's less than that. And we have worked too damn hard on our businesses to create a culture, to create something that has value to society, and to our folks, to just walk away from it and let somebody else kind of like take it over and take it in a different direction. And we felt that if we could get enough inertia, enough critical mass in this company by combining and then growing, that we could create a platform which would solidify in some way the company going into the future in some way, shape, or form that's similar to what we've created, right? Make it such a good platform that no one's going to want to mess with it, and then others will get plugged into it rather than the other way around. And so that's really, at a very basic level, that was the biggest driver in doing this, was to create a sustainable entity that has value and that could provide opportunity for our folks that have been with us a long time and all the new ones that are coming on board now. And then when you add everything else to it, the more we looked at it, the more it made sense. So that's really it. This is kind of succession planning, just waited.
Right. Wow. Interesting. So you guys might be the company that acquires more shops in the future and gets even larger instead of being acquired. Now, exactly. Without kids to kind of take the helm, are you thinking like ESOP, or how, if you guys, when you finally do step back, who would be at the helm?
Well, we're looking, ESOP is probably not, I've looked at that. We've looked at that hard. as to whether ESOP makes sense.
Hmm.
It seems that investment will probably be the ultimately where it goes. There are obviously many different flavors of that. Private
100%.
equity
Yeah.
coming in, the family offices from Europe. There's minority investments. All kinds of different ways in
Sure.
which you can go about doing that. And we are currently even we're engaging with people from an advisory standpoint to help coach us in
Hmm.
what's out there and how to start thinking about what that would be for us. Even though it's ways down the road, a lot of these things you have to start planning, well in advance and start navigating your company towards an end goal that might take, a decade to get to. And so we
Sure.
want to make sure that we're making the right moves now and
Hmm.
and taking the right direction now that will, at one, create a sustainable organization, and two, create value, for us and our employees, and make it a desirable company going
Right.
forward. And I think it's probably, we talk with our folks, it's probably going to be some kind of investor that comes in, but the whole goal is to make it an investment that they'll look at and say, man, we don't need to touch this. We're
Sure.
building a sustainable organization. Eric and I are certainly, involved, and we're those second generation family business owners that the control freak piece, that you have to like figure out how to let go of some things. But we have really focused on bringing this excellent team of people on board with us. Our lieutenants, we have put to them, you need to run the company. We need
Right.
to get you into spots to make the decisions that we're making on a daily basis so that we can start to ease ourselves out of those roles. And
Hmm.
this is a sustainable entity for the time when it's time for us to leave.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for all that background. That's uh, super. I think it's a way of thinking about your business that not a lot of shop owners think that way. So I'm sure it's good for people to hear the way you're thinking.
We try to
Um,
talk with colleagues about it. It's
sure.
sometimes deaf ears, and then other times there's a lot of intrigue. So
Yeah. Yeah. Just for some context, what size is the company today, employee wise, revenue wise, things like that?
So we're just under 110 people right now, and
Okay.
around the 20 million mark in gross revenue.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. That's a nice revenue per employee number.
yeah, we're looking to
Excellent.
push that higher. I mean, automation is a big focus,
Yep.
and getting more hours. We're really looking to get over that $200,000 mark per employee. So we're starting to push toward that. But we still have a little ways to go
Hmm.
to get there. But some of that is also work mix and type and industry related as well.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So you guys have both mentioned coaching a couple of times. You mentioned Vistage, right? Which, for those that don't know, is a sort of an executive peer group network, right? And you mentioned coaching with a gentleman about culture.
Right.
Can you share? I think coaching has huge benefits for people that are receptive to it. Can you talk a little bit about what you've learned through your coaching? And I'd love to dig into coaching, particularly on culture. Like, what are some of the specific things that coach or you guys learn to make a great culture?
Wow. That could be a whole week's worth of podcasts all at one time. Eric, I mean, I'm happy to go, but
Yeah, well, why don't you go? I can fill in.
so one of the first coaches I ever had, I engaged with something called E-Myth. It's basically it's very
It's one of
similar.
my
Yeah, E-Myth
it's
is
one of
very
my
similar.
favorite books. It's one of my
Oh, there
favorite
you
books of all
go. Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
E-Myth, yeah. So I'm an E-Myth disciple, which is very similar to Traction, the EOS
Yes.
methodology. It's very, very similar. It's kind of EOS is based on E-Myth in
Hmm.
part. But it was my E-Myth coach. I actually engaged. I read the book, and then consulting services. I brought them in, and my E-Myth coach on the very first meeting asked me what my primary aim was, which is basically if you could be a fly on the wall at your funeral, what would you like to hear people saying? And I couldn't answer. And she said, okay, meeting's over. Figure it out. Come back next week, And I came back next week and I said, I just want to be a positive influence on the people around me. I want to hear that, if I were a fly on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And she said something to me that changed my life at that moment. And it was that, if that's what you want, she says, then your business needs to be a vehicle to help you achieve that. If not, do something else. And
Profound.
at that
Wow.
point, it was very heavy, and I actually got emotional at that point because it gave purpose to everything. I was burning out because it was always focused on financial, which is obviously important, but to have her say that your business and your work needs to be help you accomplish something important in your life was transformational for me. And I just in general about coaching, at that point, I realized the power of perspectives from outside. Now, not everybody has a great, perspective. You hear the same thing a lot of times, but there are those people that just think a little differently and can point you in a direction that I personally would not be the person that I am, and I know I never would have merged with Eric, or we wouldn't be growing this company the way we are without having the coaching that we've had from our Vistage chair, from my eMyth coach, from people that we've become friendly with and have brought on as advisors to us, and even from our Vistage group. And the input that they've given us, it has truly been one of the most transformational pieces of my life. Is been acceptance of that other people know really important things that I am not aware of.
Wow, Eric, do you want to elaborate on any of that?
So when we talk about the coaching and culture, I think one thing that we didn't perhaps recognize when we first got into the program with David Friedman was that you have a culture in your company, whether you know it or not, or whether you like it or not. So why not make the choice of defining what that culture should be? And in figuring that out, one of the big things that David pushes for is really getting below the value level and getting into behaviors. And that's what our culture is based on. Actually, do you have a card, John?
Yeah.
Here. So we have something that we call our KMM fundamentals, which is a small pamphlet of all the behaviors that we aspire to live, and that we do live, and that we expect. You can probably see that in the camera there. It's
20 fundamentals. Yeah.
Two-sided here. And one of the things that we had to accept up front too, when we each started defining our cultures, is that, hey, look, there's going to be some people that fit, and there's going to be some people that don't. But one of our fundamentals is have perseverance, right? And when you define a culture, you need to have perseverance to support that culture. And you, as a leader and an owner, have to live that culture as well. Not to say, look, we're all human beings, right? We falter from time to time. But you've always got to come back to that and stand behind it, irrespective of someone's role, position, or title. And so each of us did have that experience where it was a very small percentage of some fallout, and even some of those people were incredibly talented people, and they were good people on a personal level. They just really didn't fit the company and the direction that we each wanted to take our own company. And so we had to part ways. And quite frankly, it was sad, especially when someone had been part of the company, especially when they had a lot of talent that did a lot of good for the company, meaning the company as a whole, not just us as owners. But it allowed us that foundation to flourish with the culture. And then the second phase of that is, once you define that culture, is to hold ritual and just make that culture part of your company every day. Not only in the example, lead by example, and the way you act at the company on a daily basis. But we have company meetings by the two groups we call KBI, the machining group, and M&S and Marin, the grinding group. And we have a meeting that lasts anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes every Monday at each division.
All hands, everybody.
All hands, yeah. John and I participate in each one. And
Okay.
someone from the company will read that fundamental of the week and share a little bit about what it means to them on a professional level and sometimes even on a personal level. And
Wow.
so it allows an opportunity to get to know your people better, to really hear what drives them personally and professionally. And we learn things from that. And sometimes some of those things we learn, we can convert into action. So, coaching the culture really starts in the hiring process. It's a heavy component in the hiring process. It's obviously a heavy component in the daily leadership of the company. And it's also something that we live in the way we act with our customers. And it's proven to be very helpful in that regard.
Yeah. Wow.
A lot of this, Paul, so to try to get people to sink in on exactly what culture is, it's very, very basic, very fundamental in that all of this has to stem from Eric and me, because this is the company that we own. This is the company that we want to have. This describes behaviors within that. And if we are unwilling to try to live this every single day, then it's just so much BS, right? If we can't put in there things that, well, we want you to do those things, but we don't really want to do them, kind of thing. And it's really important that this describes us. And I consider one of the most important things is that someone is passionate about what we do, that they're not mailing it in. They're here because they want to make important things happen in their lives. And some of that is to do with a paycheck. But if it's just about a paycheck, it's hollow, right? That was what was burning me out. And I still to this day say one of our top managers here, his brother worked for us for 9 years. And we were about 2-3 years into talking about the culture, not KMM. This was at an M&S Grinding prior to the merger. And he came to me after one of the meetings about me talking about find your passion in life, and hopefully for most of you, that means you're here and you're finding that here. But he came to me and says, I've been listening to you talk for years and I think I have to be an airline pilot. And I was like, what? An airline pilot? And we started talking and he was terrified I was going to be like, get out of here, either leave or whatever. And he was like, I need your help. I need to get enough hours. I need flexibility. And he was like, can I have your help? I was like, you've been listening to me. Like, you actually are taking what I'm saying to heart. Of course we'll help, And it was a long process, and we granted him flexibility. He ended up leaving a year and a half later, went through the process. He just within the last few months became a captain for American. And
wow.
I looked at that as one of the biggest successes that I've ever had. And it's a guy who's flying airlines, flying airplanes. But that's truly a success of our culture, right? Just 90+% of the people, they want to be here,
Right.
But he was never going to be a star employee because his passion would always be somewhere else. So that's a good thing. The world's a better place.
What a great example of putting that in action. Yeah, that's amazing. So you mentioned hiring lieutenants, and of course the E-Myth. And I've espoused the E-Myth. It was one of the books that we read very early in our shop's history, and it really just changed the way we thought about growth and employees and who did what and then actually, yeah. So I'd love to. First of all, for those not familiar with it, just maybe in a few words, describe what the E-Myth is about, and then how that drove your growing the company, hiring people into the roles that needed to do things so you could work on the business. Because I think it's this dynamic is especially prevalent in the machine shop business. There's a ton of shops that are started by tool and die makers, just like your father's, right? Experts in their craft, really good at the technical side of it, not particularly knowledgeable about running a business. And they buy themselves a job and very often they make less than they did in their old job probably, and now they're sort of a slave to the business. So yeah, could you just describe a little bit about the concepts for people and then how you put that into practice?
Yeah, I can be very, kind of do the Reader's Digest version there. So when I sat down and read the E-Myth for the first time, it was gifted to me. Someone gave it to me. I actually I went from start to finish in one weekend, and then went back to page one, read it again, got back to the back page, went back and read it 3 times in a row, because I was like, how does this guy know what is going on in my head? And whatnot. And it's all about the systemization of your business. How do you systemize your business to, you may never franchise your business, but if you were, what systems would you need in order to be able to do that? And 2 other aspects of it is, so it makes you think about your business in a systemic way. It also makes you think higher level, so that where the primary aim, if you were a fly on the wall, hearing people talk about you after you're gone, what do you want to hear them saying? It makes you think bigger about life, and because everything in your business needs to flow from a bigger place, and from that primary aim and strategic objective. What do you want to accomplish with this business? And then the third piece that I think was really, really important about E-Myth, and again, this is equivalent to Traction. Traction does the same thing, which we use now. And I don't see one as better than the other. Just Traction's more ubiquitous. But is that you don't create positions for people. You create a position for what the company needs, and then find people that fit the position. Because
Absolutely.
You really put yourself in a terrible position to write a position agreement or write a role description for a person that has a certain set of skills. You have to create the organizational chart. Well, there was one hanging up there before we came on air. But the organizational chart has to represent what you want the business to be when it's fully baked. And you're trying to represent all the positions are going to be there. And you need to hire people in that fit well with those positions, not the other way around. And so it really made me think about structuring the business a lot more and a lot differently, and a great deal about empowerment, which I think if there's a single thing that business owners can learn, whether you're second generation, third generation, or first, where you kind of what you said, you own your job, you just started, got the entrepreneurial seizure, so to speak, and then and went off and started the company, is that we are all control freaks. To a degree, I learned that from my dad. No one's ever going to do anything as good as you, so you have to do everything yourself. And learn that there is a way that you can safely and effectively have others take responsibility from you, and do things in the way that you coach them to. And by systemization, by having EDMs, and EDM is an employee development meeting that that helps you facilitate coaching, and getting people all on the same page, aligned and pulling the same direction. And then the culture is another big aspect of that helps align everybody and pull, so that everybody's working together rather than working against one another.
So good. So good. It's funny. The whole concept of a franchise prototype, I think it was 2017 Top Shops conference that Modern Machine Shop magazine puts on. I gave a talk on a machine shop franchise prototype concept from the E-Myth, and some people were like, what is that? So they showed up out of curiosity. But the principles are just so important, and so powerful. But they're ones I think that not a lot of shop owners think about. So
I don't think a lot of business owners think about it.
Yes, of course. Absolutely. You mentioned EDM, employee development meetings. At our shop, we called it personal accomplishment objective meetings, but we did that in conjunction with our one-on-one meetings, where each person in the company would have a direct, lead or boss, manager that would have one-on-one meetings on a regular basis. Do you guys do that and is part of that helping foster sort of the goals of your employees?
Yeah, why don't you?
Yeah,
go with that one?
when we put KMM together, obviously there was a lot of systems to merge, and some of that still goes on today. It was definitely a complex undertaking, but the EDM process came about as a quarterly one-on-one for people with their supervisor to talk about their role, and the conversation was meant more to be about the team member talking to their supervisor about what their needs are, how are things going, do they have passion in their position, what are their aspirations as far as other roles that may come up or that exist in the company, where they'd like to get to career wise. Because our goal there was to try to listen to our team and figure out how we can provide a structure that can promote success. And then we use the review process more as a one-on-one dialogue, more of a two-way discussion, where we set more goals and objectives and things to work on. And the EDM was a way to follow up on that as well. But one of the things that John actually fostered up front was we actually wrote an org chart for 2025 back in 2020. And the goal was to keep the end in mind, right, and work backwards. Yeah. And so in doing that, it also helped provide vision for people and a tool to use in our review process, so people could more easily identify where they might want to go. Hey, they might be super happy where they are, but the end goal, let's get the right people on the right seat in the bus. And the company's merging also provided that platform that provided mass in order to allow us to do that for people. When you're smaller, it can be kind of tough.
Right. People could be, with the mass, really important piece or little explanation to that is that it allowed people to become a little bit more subject matter expert instead of needing to be a generalist. By having more people, we could spread them and let them be, if they were natural in being a quality engineer, they didn't have to be the quality assurance manager. They could be a quality engineer,
Right. Sure.
And it allowed us to put people in roles that were maybe more tuned to who they are. But then to do that, you have to have the conversations, which, and to know those people. So, the inputs of our folks at the cultural meetings, and then having the one-on-ones with managers and getting feedback from that are integral to being able to place people and offer them opportunity that might be really good for them and good for the company.
And Paul, the EDM process too was a great way to provide clarity, around people's role or coaching as well if needed, or even more coaching as a follow-up afterwards. But one of the goals was always to come out with action items on for not only the employee, but for the supervisor to communicate with the company as well. A simple question could be around, how do you prefer to be managed? How do you like to talk about conflict? Right. How are you accustomed to talking about conflict and coming up with solutions?
Yeah, I just shared a post on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago about my old shop's conflict policy, and the fact that we even had one, and interviewed employees about, when we were looking to hire them, about how they manage conflict, and even the way they responded to that question was often telling enough to whether we were going to continue on a path to continue interviewing them or not. So yeah, very interesting stuff. This is so good. Culture has come up on, I'd say, most of these my interviews, but digging in this deep is really, really fantastic. Yeah, it is just, there's almost nothing that's more important than that, right?
We absolutely say it's the most important piece of our company. It is the glue. There was a long time, 10 years ago, it was a Vistage speaker that we had, and they said your culture of your company is like dirt. And I was like, what? Like dirt? He goes, if you tend it and take care of it and fertilize it, you can plant anything in it and it'll grow. If you don't pay attention to it, it's kind of potluck. And I never forgot that, and that really solidified that was in the formative stages of trying to think about what the culture was, what shape it was going to take, and how it was going to be tangible to the employees. And since then, I mean, we do this every single week, right? Every single week, and we only have 20, so 2.5 times we go through around this thing 2.5 times during the course of it every single year. And we were doing this before we had the KMM version as individuals, and we've been doing it since 2010, 2011. So this will be 12 or 13 years, and the culture is stronger now than it was. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't get old. Yeah, you got to do some things to keep it fresh a little once in a while, but there are always new stories. There's always new people sharing their perspectives on things, and the culture. Though we make tons of investments in our equipment and advancing and the building that we're building, which is many millions of dollars. There isn't anything more important than the culture. Not so.
Fantastic. Great wisdom. Thank you. I'd love to move on to some other topics. How do you guys go about getting your customers? Do you have sales and marketing teams? Do you really focus on those things? Are you sales driven, or is it just customers you've acquired over the years that continue to stick with you?
So yes, a little bit of all those things. However, I will say that our both of us came from the place of engineering, right? Both of us came from a place of, hey, we're technically excellent at what we do, and if we build it, they will come. And we were very high level technical capability and put almost no effort into sales. Very, very minimal effort. And over the course of the last, I'd say, handful of years, we came to realize that was a miss. That was the wrong thing to do. Vistage really opened my eyes to it. I think it's the same for Eric, where some of our colleagues really focused on sales and not so much on the technical aspects. And they outgrew us. And it really made me think that we have to make the sales side and marketing side of the company equal to the excellence that we have in engineering. And so, yeah, we hired, we've built out the sales and marketing team now. We hired 2 really important people last year. We have a VP of business development that comes from a much larger competitor and jumped to come to us because of culture, by the way. And then in December, we hired a marketing director who works out of Colorado, but she is amazing. She's in a month has made a huge indelible footprint, print on this company about how to approach marketing and how to get in front of people and drawing up marketing plans. So and we've been filling in the rest around that. So our focus is now equal on sales and marketing that as it is to acquiring new equipment or looking at new processes.
So I know, especially smaller shops, they don't know where to start when it comes to, investing in sales and marketing, or really like penetrating that sort of higher level of customer, that sort of A grade customer that really cares about the incredible technical excellence you bring. Can you speak to a little bit about maybe branding, image, just like how you portray your company in the marketplace that makes it attractive to those really high tier types of clients?
Yeah, I have one really, I think, pertinent comment on that. When we were just a tiny company, it was just dumb luck, right, that we found this out. But it's really important to a lot of our colleagues try to put out there everything that they do. We can do anything, and that's great, except that everybody does that. And and you're perceived as a generalist. The internet specifically opens the door for companies that are subject matter experts. So pick one thing which you feel you have a little bit of an edge, and make yourself, from a branding standpoint, we are the experts in this. It
Right.
seems counterintuitive to focus on one thing, but that one thing opens way more doors than saying we do everything. And and so that's what I've told a lot of our colleagues to focus on. Pick something or maybe two things that you're really, really at, and pound that. Put it out, optimize your website, get some good web pages out there. We did that. We also started doing trade shows. So we do some medical device trade shows, aerospace trade shows, and purport certain aspects of where you bring some certain expertise, and people will, that it was largely inbound. They were coming to find us, but now we're going outbound. So I think the outbound is a little harder, conceptually to do for smaller companies. But if you're getting phone calls from California or emails from, large companies because you're showing your expertise in something, I think, that's where the payoff is.
Yeah. It's funny that, Ted, from episode number 17, for those listening, he really focused on niching down, right? And he even had a whole framework and worksheet about how to identify your niche. And he had great success. And now you're reinforcing the same exact thing, that really specializing in those niches is critical. So great advice.
One thing I mentioned, since this podcast is obviously directed at an audience, and for some of the companies that might be a little smaller, I mean, we recognize that you need mass to have certain resources for certain things. I mean, when we were a 40 plus person company, there was no way we were hiring a director of marketing. It just wasn't in the budget. But Reading Traction, much like eMyth, I think really provides a good framework of their 8-step process. And in the Vision Traction Organizer is a whole section around marketing strategy and how to define your niche and what you're absolutely best at in the world. And also gives you some guidance around identifying what customer profile you'd like to go after. And then, of course, educating yourself on that profile and what those companies are like, and can you service and support what their needs are and meet their expectations.
One last thought on this is what Eric and I 2 years ago, we engaged with a marketing group. So it was an outsourced marketing before we brought in our director of marketing. Yeah, and we were looking at what we were going to pay on a yearly basis to this marketing group for their services. And we said, it's like buying a machine, it's just a marketing machine, and I think we in this industry have a hard time conceptualizing that, but it really is, that's all you're doing. It's just a different kind of machine that generates leads, and once you can get yourself past that, well, I'm spending $8,000 a month, which could be a big machine payment, on someone that's going to put us out there. But if they're doing a good job, it pays back many, many, many times over. So, it conceptually is a good thing to think about if you're in a position to go do it.
I love that way of thinking about it. Yeah. It seems like a lot of shops are like, if it's not going to make me chips, I don't want to buy it. So
everyone wants to see them then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Great advice. Thank you, guys. Are you guys transparent with your organizations about your finances?
Yeah, so we host a quarterly meeting with each division. Try to do it within the month following the quarter end. And we share a variety of metrics. We try to highlight what really went well, what was a win, so people can understand that and continue those same behaviors. On the financial side itself, we share backlog, revenue, total revenue by division right now, but next year it'll be for all of KMM. And then we do share our net profit margin by division. And we also track that over rolling 4 quarters, so people can see the trend. And we try to explain aligning the metrics together with the financial outcome. And we always try to leave them with something at the end. What are actionable items that we can all do as individuals? Because let's face it, running any company is a complex thing. And when our father started the business, right, if you equate it to a pizza pie, they were one whole pie. There was no slices, right? They did the purchasing, they did the hiring, they ran the parts, they talked to the customers, they did the engineering, they did everything.
Of course.
As you grow, you can start, slicing up that pie into the subject matter expert categories. And of course, with every company, right, you've got ops, you've got quality, you've got IT, et cetera, and all these different components of the company. But getting people to understand what their role is, bringing clarity to that, and how they make contributions, positive contributions to the company. And then I think as an owner, and when you share that information, you have to set targets for things.
Yep.
And there needs to be a reward system around those targets. So that's what we share.
Fantastic. And is that reward system profit sharing or some other bonus thing, or what does that look like?
When we meet minimum target levels, we look at bonus, and we also look at profit sharing as well.
Fantastic. Wow. So when you share those wins, are those particular jobs or just strategic things the company has done, like your new marketing team, or what kind of wins do you share?
Sure. The wins are across the entire company. It can come from any division. It can come from marketing. It can come from sales. It can talk about new customer growth. It can talk about implementation of a highly complex automation and either machining or EDM system. A win we had earlier this year. We've been doing EDM since 1979, and so in the last few years we got into micro wire EDM. Down to about 2,000 diameter wire. I know there's some equipment manufacturers that go down to 8/10, but 2,000, you're still finer than your hair. And so we devised a tooling system together with, we actually had to create all of our own EPACs and power settings to get the feature sizes that we needed, but then also had to combine that automation with custom pickups, because the parts being so small and where they needed to be cut, it was difficult to maintain the rigidity. So, our team designed all the work holding, did all the automation side after the OEM, did their part to get things set up. And so to us, that's a huge success, right? Huge technical success and a win towards the way we want to run the company, and, bringing more higher technology, bringing in automation in a multitude of ways. It could be with software, right? It can be with hardware, robotics, whatever it may be. But that would be an example of a great win for the person that did that in the company. And then we also share, team successes where things may be coming together well. We look at department performance, not only in utilization, but efficiency. And we created a metric called the machine to labor multiplier, where, we basically just look at how many hours of unattended time do we create for every labor hour by work center. And so when departments are, tracking high and doing well, we allow them to speak at that meeting and give us some insights on what they're doing to get there.
Man, this is juicy, good stuff. Holy cow. You guys are delivering. Do you have a process for people sharing the wins that they want to have shared in the meeting, or do you just kind of know or pick them yourselves?
Right now, we definitely pick them ourselves.
Okay.
Where we'll talk to managers about, asking them to talk with one of their supervisors or someone on the floor and say, hey, could you share a little bit about this? And sometimes even at a fundamentals meeting, so something like that may come about. But the quarterly meeting is the main spot, and generally, we are bringing those up.
Right. Yeah, just even in a fundamentals meeting like 2 weeks ago, we had one employee basically giving kudos to another, saying, hey, I was struggling with something, and this young guy came over and had a great idea and worked the weekend to, make it work, and all of a sudden we're running automated, and he didn't have to do that, but, it's just kind of, I think, what we've established here, and people really they're engaged in the success of their peers. So I think it's kind of an ongoing, thing where, people just feel that they can share that and that is appreciated by everybody.
Yeah. Wow. So great. So I want to be cognizant of our time, but there's 3 more things I'd love to ask you. One, I'd like to ask about how you guys make it work as business partners and any challenges you had to overcome in partnering that way. I think you've kind of alluded to some of your best strategic moves and decisions you've made over the years, and then what you'd recommend that shops should be doing right now to ensure their success. So let's start with your partnership.
I'll start on the partnership. Eric and we view this as a marriage. Really, I think. Look, it's we make common decisions. We're 50-50 owners. One of us does not have more power than the other. We figured that was the only way it was going to work. And one of the big questions around that was like, well, what happens when you have a disagreement and you're fighting about it? Thankfully, that neither of us have very big egos. And so we learned from a Vistage speaker. So we cite Vistage a lot. But Vistage speaker, at one point, it was just kind of a secondary conversation, but saying like, this speaker said, like with my wife, he said, like, if we're having an argument about something, whoever's more passionate wins. Whoever it means more to should win. And Eric and I kind of took that and said, you know what, we can do that for us. And saying like, because we're both going to have different perspectives on things at times, and if he's evidently more passionate, like he's riled up about something, man, I defer to you. You go for it. I'm in support, and the same for me. And honestly, we just defer to each other as to how much it means to us as an individual. And we are 3 years into a very stressful, huge growth time, building COVID. I mean, we have not had a single argument in 3 years. I mean, we just respect, highly respect what we each of us bring to this, and know that we're not perfect people, but I think the two of us together do really, really well, and we cover a lot of bases, between the two of us. So I think that's
I think ultimately, Paul, it just boils down to respect, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, having respect, having empathy, not having a big ego, and being humble, I think, and which I can see the humility in both of you. It's just such important qualities to make that all work well. Excellent. All right. Best strategic moves, best decisions. Probably your merger is probably top of the list, but not every shop can last for, 30, 40, 50 plus years.
I think one of the greatest strategic wins, beyond the merger, is building the team and having the culture, standing behind the culture, and letting the culture be paramount in our decision making. Not allowing the prima donna thing to happen, or the untouchable person, and then hiring around that culture to build it more. I'm not trying to brag or boast here, but everyone that started with us always tells us, within a few days or a week, because we have these regular check-ins. At first it's daily, and then it becomes weekly, and then it becomes monthly over a 6-month period. And everyone has always said, everyone made me feel welcome. Everyone supported me to be able to be successful in what my role was, and nobody ever made me feel like I was asking a dumb question, no matter how minor it may have been. So I would say, building the culture, building the team was a great strategic win.
I think, just my brief thought on that is that our greatest strategic win is yet to come for me. It's that, it is completely evident where we're headed. 10 years ago, I wrote a vision for what was then, the grinding side of this, what exists now as KMM Group. And the vision that I wrote is a very similar, it was a strategic objective, which, you're familiar with in the EVIT. It painted a really, really vibrant picture of what this thing was going to look like. And it is exactly what this company is turning into right now. And it's very validating. But when we reach that level of sustainability where we feel like our team is now taking this and they're making it their own, when Eric and I are a little bit more superfluous, that will be it. because it's been planned and in the work for so long. And I now can almost reach out and touch it. It's a really cool feeling, but I want to get over the finish line with that.
Wonderful. Awesome. And so that might just segue very nicely into what you think shops should be doing right now to ensure their own success.
I will venture on that. Plan. Write plans. Plans are not going to be perfect, but so few business owners write a plan. A plan is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you write a plan and you take measures to execute on the plan will happen. And you have to think into the future, whether it's 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year. We write all of those. I write yearly plans for the company. There are 5-year plans for the company, 10-year plans for the company. But it has to start somewhere. I was shamed into writing my first plan in 2009. And it was so liberating. I just oh my God, why didn't I do this before? And it's something that we miss as business owners. Even Vistage, we don't plan as much. I wish that would be a stronger component of our Vistage group. But that to me is the thing that's most, because you can make your business what you want, but you have to know what you want and pick a goal and start working towards it, little baby steps. But it to me was the most important aspect of the growth of this company.
Excellent. Wow. Well, thank you guys so much. The train is now arriving. How can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out and?
Our KMM Group, KMMGRP.com is our company, and they can send through the inquiries through the website, and of course we can make it I'm always happy to entertain from my personal email. People are more than willing to try to answer back, and anybody that might have questions on anything. When Eric and I put out 3 years ago that we were doing this to our local group, we got tons of emails from our local base of colleagues and customers and whatnot about hey, what exactly are you guys doing? And part of this, Paul, is that we feel like that we're doing something that's a little bit different here, but by doing it organically, doing it ourselves. And there are alternatives, to ways to grow your company or ways to position your company to be sustainable into the future. This is one. So we're happy to share because it is about, just like this podcast. I so respect you for doing this. We're here to support the industry, to support our colleagues. There's plenty of work to go around. The industry is just too important for the country and to our region to not pay attention to it. And if we, by doing what we're doing and answering an email, we can shed some light that helps somebody become a more viable company into the future, then that's a big win.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, the respect is mutual. I hugely admire what you guys are building and the way you're doing it, the intentionality that you clearly have, and your obvious passion for the industry and to give back. That's and I see that in so many people in this industry. Just they understand the importance of how important it is to our country, to our economy, and that's really what drives me to do this podcast as well, just to share the wisdom of folks like yourself with more people.
Smart people should make things. That's the book, but yeah. It's true.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I feel like we could go another couple hours. Maybe we'll do a round 2 in the future. We'll see. But This has been immensely informative, a lot of fun, and I know that people will get a lot from the wisdom you guys shared. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you so much. It was really, really enjoyable.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
All right. Take care, guys.
Bye.